beautiful people. I am Olakunbi and you're welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful ruffle blouse. It has ruffles on the neck, the chest and sleeves. This type is good for any occasion, so let's get right to it. But before we start, I would like to say a big thank you to all my subscribers, and for those that are just tuning in, you are highly welcome. Please do well to subscribe to my channel, like, share my videos. Thank you. I'll be working with this lovely organza fabric. It's very light and transparent, so let's get started. You'll be drafting your simple basic bodies, but without that. I have my pattern paper and this is my starting line here. I've also placed my shoulder to waist measurement of 15 inches and shoulder to hip measurement of 23 inches or whatever length you want your blouse to be. This is also 1 inch for hemming allowance. I'll use 2 3/4 for the neck width instead of 3 inches so that it is closer to the neck. I'll also use 2 3/4 for the neck depth. Connect these 2 points together with your curve ruler to form your front neckline. Then go down by 1 inch, mark and make your curve for the back neckline. Take half of your shoulder measurement, mark it. Mine is 7.5 inches, go down by 1 inch and mark. Connect this point to the neckline to form the shoulder slope. To get the armhole length, take your bust circumference measurement, divide it by 6, then add 1.5 inches. My result is 7.5 inches, then I'll mark that and connect the point to the shoulder slope. Then make a straight line across to form your chest line. Take half of your armhole measurement, mark and go in by 3/4 of an inch. Connect to form your front armhole. Also connect from the midpoint to the chest line to form your back armhole. Next, you place 1/4 of bust circumference measurement. I have 9 inches plus 1 inch side seam allowance plus 1 inch or half an inch for ease. I have a total of 10.5 inches, so I'll mark on the chest line. On the waistline, take 1/4 of your waist circumference measurement plus 1 inch for side seam allowance and 1/4 inch for ease, so as to give enough room for wearing, and mark it. On the hemline, place 1/4 of hip measurement plus 1 inch side seam allowance and 1 inch for ease and mark. Connect these points together. On this line, go up by 1 inch to form a curve that will reduce the sharpness of the side. Take your pattern master and make a curve. Do the same on the hem allowance line, then go and add your ½ inch shoulder allowance. Because of the gathers will be attaching to the chest, the blouse will be cut to form a yoke. What we will do is go up by ½ inch or 1 inch. Just remember that the fabric is transparent, and make your line. This is what I have right now, but I'm going to make it a curve. I don't want it to be straight, so I'm going to kind of make a curve and blend it into this line. So this is the line that we'll cut so as to attach the ruffles in between the yoke and the lower part of the bodice. So the next thing we're going to do is to cut out our pattern using the back neckline and back armhole. At this point, I will cut out my back pattern on the fabric directly since it is not having a zipper. Then I'll come back to cut off the back neckline and armhole. Place your fabric on fold and put your pattern paper on it and cut out. Now take your pattern paper and cut out the back neckline and armhole, then cut out the yoke. This is the yoke and this is the lower part of the bodice. For the yoke, I'll be transforming the plain organza fabric to a beautiful fabric using line stitches. To do that, you place your fabric on fold and place your pattern paper on it. The measurement I have is 30 inches long. I might not use everything. Then to get the height, just measure your pattern paper, then add about 3 to 4 inches. Transfer your measurement to the fabric, then join the points together and cut out. open up your fabric and begin marking 1.5 inches all the way to the end of the fabric. Then do the same for the other side as well. To begin sewing, pick up the first point on this end and pick up the first point on the other end. Then use your pins to secure it and do the same at the other end too. Stretch it to make sure the fold is equal, then pin it in the middle. Now you can start stitching with about 1/8 of an inch, removing the pins as you sew along. It's coming out really lovely, and we're done with the first stitch. Again, pick and fold the neck points on both ends, pin it, and place the folded point under the needle. Then stretch and pin in the middle. Then you can start stitching. See what it looks like so far. So you just keep doing the same process until you have covered the entire strip of the fabric. We have successfully transformed this plain organza into this lovely design. The next thing to do is to place the fabric on fold. Grab your yoke pattern and place it on top of it. Pin it down and add 1/2 inch allowance at the bottom. The 1/2 inch allowance is going to be used to join both the yoke and the lower part of the front bodies. After marking and joining the points, cut out your pattern. Then remove your pins. We will be working on the lower part of the front bodies. Place your fabric on fold and place the lower part of the pattern paper over the fabric. At the top, add your 1/2 inch allowance, then cut out the fabric. The next thing we're going to do is to cut out a strip that we're going to use for the ruffles in the front. The fabric is on fold and it is 30 inches long and 8.5 inches wide. We're going to be taking it in on one side. The bottom side is going to be taken in by 1/2 inch. Then we're going to run our gathered stitch all the way through to the end of the other side of the fabric. I have folded in and stitched one of the longest sides and 2 short sides in by 1/2 inch. What we're going to do now is to attach it to the lower part of the bodies. I wanted to use the machine to gather the strip, but I'll be using my hand to just bunch it up and stitch. Okay, so but before I do that, the next thing to do is just to notch the center of the strip. Do the same also for the lower bodies. This will help us to evenly distribute the gathers. Then take the yoke also, fold it into 2 and notch. I am at the machine and I've placed down the bodies right side facing up. I will take the strip and place the wrong side facing the bodies. Then align the notch together and pin it in place. Taking the beginning side of strip, start bunching or gathering on the bodies under the needle and start stitching. And continue to evenly distribute the gathers as you sew along. This is what we have so far, and now that we are done with that, we'll be attaching the yoke to it. So place right side of the yoke to face the ruffles, then pin them together in place at that point where we left 5 inches sewing allowance. Okay, so you pin them together at that point, then you can begin to stitch together. Make sure you top stitch when you are done. So just push the allowance under the bodies and stitch it down. Our blouse is coming out lovely. So next we will attach the back piece. Grab your fabric, fold it into 2, then measure about 5.5 inches and mark it. Then slit it open. After that, you prepare a thin strip of bias that you are going to use to finish the slit. It should be about 1.7 inches wide. Next, you attach both front and back bodies at the shoulders and at the sides. I have finished attaching both shoulders together and also both side seams. I have gone ahead to finish the slit with the bias. We will now prepare to make our neck ruffles. So, first to take the neckline measurement. What I have is 18 inches. So whatever you have, multiply by 3 for the length. I have my strip and the length is 54 inches, while the width is 4 inches. So you take it to your machine, fold into 2 and close at both ends. Both sides have been stitched now. So what you do is just notch it at the corner, then turn it to the right side. After doing that, the next thing you're going to do is to take it to your machine and go and run 2 gathered stitches at the open side of the strip. Alright, then you pull your rope to form the ruffles. Remember, I got 18 inches for the neckline measurement, so make sure you pull the ruffle till you get whatever measurement you had for your neckline. Okay, so I'm measuring my neckline and my ruffle right now, and I have 18 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do is to attach it to the blouse. Okay, so you attach it to the neck of the blouse, starting from the back. Place it on the right side of the blouse and begin to pin all round. When you are done with that, you go to the machine and stitch it down. Now that I've attached the ruffle to the neckline, I'm going to finish it up with my bias. So my bias is about 1 3/4 inches wide, and the length is of course more than 18 inches long. Okay, before we take it to the machine, I'll just trim it off a bit to make it even. So you use your scissors to just trim it a bit so that the width will be even, so that you don't find some parts bulkier than the rest. Make sure you have your bias folded by about 1/2 inch. Okay, so you can see, and you place your bias on the ruffles. Okay, make sure it aligns with the edge. We're going to be stitching about with about half an inch. Okay. Okay guys, so when we get to the end here, because we're going to be inserting our loop for the button. Okay, so we'll take our loop right now, cross one end over the other, then you place it under your bias, okay, on top of the ruffle, under your bias. So it's going to be in between the bias and the ruffle. Use your pin to secure it. You check to see if everything is okay, then you continue stitching. Place it, use your pin to secure it, then you stitch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off. When you get to the end here, you haven't finished stitching, but when you get towards the end here, just make sure you move about half an inch away from the edge of the fabric here, okay? You can see the ruffle at this point, so I'll just move out about half an inch and cut. Okay, so after you cut, you fold just like you did when we started. You can see what I'm doing. So I'll stitch, I'll continue stitching. So the next thing we'll do is to flip it over this way. Okay, remember we folded it at this edge, so flip it over like so. Make sure you tuck it in properly. Flip it over this way and stitch it. I'm done with the neck ruffles. It's coming out well, so the next thing I'm going to do is to attach my button. Everything is looking great right now, so what we'll do next is to create our sleeve. To draft the sleeve, draw a starting line and make sure you leave a little bit of space on top of the line for the puff on the sleeve. The length we'll be working with is 23 inches. This is the starting point and I will measure 23 inches down. Do the same on the other side and form your line. Next, we'll impute the cap's height. So we divide both circumference by 12 plus half an inch. The result I have is 3.5 inches, so I'll mark that on both sides and connect with a line. Next, you divide your armhole measurement by 2. Whatever you have, place it on the cap's height line. Mine is 7.5. I'll mark 7.5 inches, then add 5.5 inches and 1 inch seam allowance to give it a little bit of fullness on the sleeve. At the top, I'll add 2 inches extra for a little puff, then half an inch for seam allowance. I'll connect these 2 points together. I'll go ahead to label the line so that we don't get confused. This is the cap's height line, and this was the apex of the sleeve before we added 2 inches on top of it. From this point here, make a curve and connect to the cap's height line. That is for the back armhole. So now we'll make the front armhole because it's a bit deeper. Okay, so we have both front and back armholes now. This sleeve is going to have elastic at the wrist. So what you will do is measure your sleeve length in order for us to determine where the elastic is going to sit. Okay, so from your shoulder you measure all the way down. It stops about here. So the elastic is going to be at 20 inches. Measure starting from this point all the way to 20 and make your mark. Do the same at the other side too. Connect these lines together. So that means the ruffles will be 3 inches wide. What I want to do in order to case this elastic is just what I'm doing. So when I measure my sleeve, this is 23 inches right here. What I'll do is I'm going to fold in another 3 inches. Okay, remember I said the elastic is going to be at 20 here, so I'm going to fold in another 3 inches to join this 20, but I have to add seam allowance there to fold in and hem it in. Okay, so I'll be adding 1 inch. Okay, so I'm going to fold in 3 inches plus 1 inch. That will be a total of 4 inches. So right now at this point here I'll be adding 4 extra inches. So the last thing we're going to do right now is to connect this point to this point. But first of all, we have to take the same measurement that we have on our cap's height line. Okay, and we're going to transfer it here and roll to join the points together. Okay, that is it, guys. So the next thing we're going to do is to cut it out using the back armhole. Alright, so I'll go ahead and cut it out. I've transferred the sleeve pattern to the fabric. So the first thing you do is to notch it. Spread out the sleeve and measure 4 inches up from the hem. Then mark it. Fold the fabric over and use your pins to secure it. Iron it flat, then take it to the machine to stitch it. I have stitched it now. So the next thing I'm going to do is to measure the elastic. The width of my elastic is half an inch, so I'll be leaving a distance of 3/4 for the next stitch I'm going to make under the first one I just made. Okay, so now I've made the second stitch. So what you'll do next is to measure your wrist, and whatever you get, add 2 inches for seam allowance and 1 inch for ease, so a total of 3 inches. My wrist circumference is 6, so I'm adding 3 inches, which will give me 9 inches. So I'll cut 2 elastic that I'll be using for both sleeves. Using your safety pin, pass the elastic in between the 2 stitches that you just made. Okay, after passing the elastic through, stitch it by 1 inch away from the edge of the blouse. Okay, then distribute your gathers. You're going to stitch it on that line where you marked 1 inch. Okay, but before we do that, we're going to run our gather stitch on this point. Okay, starting from this point all the way to the other point there where my fingers are. Then close up at the side seams by 1 inch allowance. After that, pull your gathers at the top of your sleeve to the measurement of your armhole, then attach it to your armhole. Then your blouse is finished. This is what it looks like, and it came out so gorgeous. So don't forget to remove your running stitch that you use for the gathers at the sleeve. Okay, so see everything, it looks so nice. All the gathers are looking well and nice. So if you have enjoyed this tutorial, please give me a thumbs up, share to your family and friends, leave your comments, and above all, subscribe guys, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until another time, take care and God bless. Bye.